We going? We live?
We
Are
live.
we live? We are. It is your favorite daytime sports talk show. Hello, everybody. It's the RP Show. Coming at you live, not on Game Plus television today, nor for the rest of the week. However, we are live streaming on YouTube and on the radio. Shout out Rhino Radio, WQEE, where we are Atlanta's NHL show. Let's make some noise. We're going to explain to everybody over the course of the next 2 hours what we're doing here today and why. But you see me in the Florida studio. You see Moose in the NHL's Bermuda Triangle. And it's going to be, we're kind of kicking it old school. People are writing in wondering, what are they watching? Just hang on, slow your roll, and we'll get to that. But it's 2 hours of your favorite sports talk coming up. And in our Quick Six show topics, quite frankly, and obviously, we're going to be talking about the Stanley Cup final. We're going to be talking about the Western Conference final ending, the NBA finals. We have some fun sports talk questions that might annoy some people and even offend others. So, Moose, that's coming up. Memorial Cup, Blue Jays, NLL. I think he can fill 2 hours. I will tell you that Serena Taylor's coming up later on in hour two. But do you want to explain what we're doing here and why? And I will say congratulations right out of the gate, Moose, for pulling this off because it looks amazing.
Well, the fact is we're on the air, so that's a good thing. It's my first time flying the Millennium Falcon. It's not the Millennium Falcon. It's, pieced together by duct tape and Baylor's twine. But you know what? It's fun. So, be patient, bear with us. But we're going to create the stream and the podcast and everything all week long. We're not on Game Plus TV. Our wonderful production crew is out in Moose Jaw at the World Para Ice Hockey Championships. So we've got the controls here for a week, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, so make some noise. As I said, share it around. We're still listen live, the radio feed from WQEE, and then, of course, YouTube. And Moose also will be posting the podcast a little later on. But none of the rest has changed. 902-518-3033 is the number to reach me here in the Florida studio, or you can write in on the YouTube chat and go. We don't have the director, Jordan Quick Six Showhorn, so I'll just say, did that come through, Moose? Did you hear it okay?
No.
There's the Quick Stick Joe horn. It was it was the John Ohm bell.
Oh, yes.
You heard that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's go. We're going to open up with the Stanley Cup playoffs. And I didn't even mention when I was rattling off all our topics that we will get to a wrap of the Canadian Football League week one of the preseason. We'll get to that because I have some thoughts. Speaking of streaming and so forth, I watched the live stream Saturday night of the Saskatchewan Roughriders 30-27 victory over the BC Lions, and I thought it was pretty good. But point one of the Quick Six, man, could I spend some time on this? William Karlsson scored twice and added a helper, and Aiden Hill stopped 23 shots for his second shutout of the playoffs, and the visiting Vegas Golden Knights crushed the Dallas Stars 6-0 to win the best-of-7 Western Conference Final 4-2. Vegas now moves on to face the Florida Panthers in the Stanley Cup Final. There's a lot to get to on all of that. Moose, the game wasn't much. I think by the time I frankly turned it on because I was watching other things, it was 2-0 Stars already, 2-0 Golden Knights, and then boom, 3-0. And I'm like, this is over. Vegas is not going to blow this, and they didn't. They went on to a 6-0 victory, and now they open at home Saturday night, Game 1, Stanley Cup Final. So I'll get your take on that. And you were a Stars fan for like a minute. Is it going to stick, Moose? Is it going to stick? Are you going to be a Stars fan for a while? I feel like there's a fit there.
Yeah.
You in Dallas, or are you moving on?
No, I got to have a U.S. Team to pull for. Why not Dallas? They've been pretty good to me, and they're going to be really good to our show, which is exciting. But you're right. It seemed like Dallas came back and just didn't have it, right? Vegas wasn't going to be denied, and that's how it goes, right? Sometimes, you put all your effort in to come back. You have an emotional OT win, then you come back with a really good effort to win a second game, but you go back into Vegas and they reset, man, and you get Jamie Benn back, but it didn't help. Tough one, but it sets up a great Stanley Cup.
Been there, done that. And from the audience, John Ohm says, boom, the RP show is back. Who the heck is it here? Said, congrats on covering the Stanley Cup final. And there's the reason I read that comment And Jeff, the Stamps fan, says the Stanley Cup final schedule is terrible. Yes, it is. It's Charles Barkley terrible. Because think about this, Moose. I'm going to be covering the Stanley Cup final. Last night we were sitting on the couch watching Golden Girls, which, by the way, I love Golden Girls. That's part of the reason why I've nicknamed Serena the Golden Girl, which incidentally she likes it, and she'll be on the air with us here in hour 2. I'm not going to tell you why I love the Golden Girls so much. I'm going to say that for my weekend column. But it was literally, this email came in from the National Hockey League, and I looked at her, and she looked at me, and I said, it's my accreditation request. And you went to university, I went to college. Remember when you got that letter? We've seen it on TV shows, but we've lived it, whether you were going to get into college or not. When that letter comes, this was very similar to that. And it said the status of your Stanley Cup playoff accreditation is approved. And we don't have a Rick Reagan voice to do it, but so that's all great. Full disclosure, I'm just going to say this. I am coming back to Canada 2 weekends from now, so the schedule could be better. Jeff, the Stamps fan, is 100% right. Had the Golden Knights finished this series off in 4 or 5 games, the Stanley Cup final would be beginning Wednesday, tomorrow, May 31st. But no, Golden Knights blew it. So now the schedule goes, Saturday's game 1, Monday game 2 in Vegas, then back here Thursday, Saturday, games 3 and 4. Somebody's got some splaining to do here. So at the very least, I'll be able to attend, I think, a couple of games, but not everything. And I'm not going to Las Vegas. There's a saying that we have in recovery, and there's one day at a time is my favorite, but another one is easy does it. This is my first Stanley Cup final. Easy does it. I don't need to be ripping across this country going to all. We're not ESPN. Believe it or not, we're not. So I've been offered a place to stay in Vegas just this morning, Darren, in Henderson, the neighboring community of Las Vegas. We got a place for you to stay if you want to come. I'm like, easy does it.
Yeah. Well,
I'll do the Florida games. What do you got? What are you going to say?
When we did the Stanley Cup the first time in Montreal, we didn't travel to Tampa. We stayed in Montreal. So we pick a host center and really get the vibe of the community and the city. And I think, Sunrise in South Florida is a great place to be. It's the spot, I think, when you think about where you'd rather be for the Stanley Cup.
It's where I want to be. But my point is, for my first Stanley Cup final, I don't need to be traipsing across this country. I'm okay with FLA Live Arena. I'm going to have to change some flights as it is. No, chill. Jeff, the Stamps fan, goes on to say, the older I get, the more attractive the Golden Girls get. Oh, no. We will add in our own sound effects to this. And I'm not saying he's entirely wrong. But at this moment, I'm not going to touch it.
Yeah, I'm not there yet.
Ryan in Toronto says, hello from Toronto, Rod Squad. It's going to be an amazing show. I agree. It already is. Landry in Billings, Montana says, hopefully everyone had a nice weekend. Go Panthers. But either team will have their first Stanley Cup, so it will be exciting. That is very interesting. And I'll just say this before we move. Well, I'll move on to point 2 right now. The Florida Panthers are headed to Las Vegas for the weekend. The Golden Knights are going to open the Stanley Cup at home, game 1 Saturday night, as mentioned, against the Florida Panthers. So there's a lot to get into there, and we've got all week to do it. I promised that we would talk about the CFL preseason, and we're going to. For those that have just logged on, we're not on television today. If you're wondering why the new look and stuff, this is a Darren DuPont produced production, and if I may, I think he's done a very spiffy job. But we don't have to adhere to the commercial breaks that we normally do. We don't, right, Moose? We don't.
You can break whenever you want. I would just say, maybe ask me if I'm ready for a break. I will be, but
sure. I'm just saying it's the formatics are a little different, but you can still you can reach us the same way, 902-518-3033, with whatever your comments are on whatever we're talking about. There's a lot of things that have happened since Friday. For instance, the last time we were on the air, I had a very long, shaggy mop of hair. It's Friday that I got my haircut, which I almost need another haircut. It's like 4 or 5 days later. Think about that for a second. So, even though we're not on television, I'm still getting off track. And we are still Atlanta's NHL show on WQEE Radio. But before I go any further into the Stanley Cup final, let me say this. The poll question today for Key Auto Group. Get a new or pre-owned vehicle that fits you at Key Auto Group. They will treat you right every time. And it's all just a click away at keyautogroup.ca. Who wins the Stanley Cup final? And ain't that hard of a question to come up with? But it might be a harder question to answer. And probably, I put this up a few hours ago on Twitter. So about an hour in, they had Vegas leading by about 62% of the vote. An hour later, they had Florida leading, but with 56% of the vote. So that's telling me, I think, Darren, we're going to settle in on, by the time Saturday rolls around, probably around a 50-50 split, which is not surprising. The regular season matchup between the two was 1-1. I was at the game here when Vegas was here, and it was probably their worst game of the season. I talked to Kelly McCrimmon about it. Wasn't his term, it was mine, their general manager, but that was like their rock bottom, because then it touched off a long winning streak after that. Just Florida caught them on a bad night. Vegas is still the better team, and for that reason, they will win the Stanley Cup in 6 games. You heard it here, everybody. The Vegas Golden Knights will win the Stanley Cup in 6 games. I actually have a Vegas Golden Knights 3/4 zip. Moose, I was going to bring it out here and burn it right on the set. I might wait until later in the week to do that. What's your prediction?
I thought maybe you were going to wear it, and you got the ball cap and stuff too, right? Like,
I got everything.
One day, one the next. But yeah, you know what? I'll take the Panthers to win this thing, but I think it's going to be a 7-game series. I think this is going to be a real good series. They're fresh, but Vegas is really good. It's going to be fun.
Okay, so let's spend a minute on that. And by the way, we've got NBA Finals, Blue Jays, CFL Preseason, Memorial Cup, NLL. That's all on the way. We're going to keep rolling here in the warm-up. We don't have to take a break, and I know that's all good with Ryan O'Radio at WQEE. How about that? Atlanta's NHL show is right here, and they will be at the Stanley Cup Finals, WQEE. Ryan is pumped about that. Randy from Winnipeg says, how impressive is it? Vegas' first 6 years in the NHL, they're in the Stanley Cup final again. It is. I think there's 2 or 3 other teams that have done this. But on NHL Network, and you poor peasants, you people in Canada, yeah, ding, don't get the NHL Network all day. You get it in the mid to late afternoons. But I get it 24/7. I pay out the nose for it. But they were playing a clip on NHL Network this morning. Ken Danico, well, let me back up, not the Danico thing. They were playing a clip of Bill Foley the night they were introducing the team, way back when, 2016, the Vegas Golden Knights. And Bill Foley said, he was asked by the MC, how soon before you bring a Stanley Cup to Las Vegas? And he goes, well, I've seen people say 7 years, but I'll say 6 years. And I was like, oh, big balls there from Foley. I'd be pulling that clip and playing it for the Panthers at their practice today. Oh, guess what this guy's saying? This is what their owner's saying. So he put his balls on the table. Serena, she thought that was cool that he said that.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's not, but I would be using every single piece of bulletin board material I could if I'm the Florida Panthers going into this series, because they're going to need it.
Yeah. But you know what? They've backed up Foley's prediction. They're getting to the Stanley Cup, and they're really close to winning.
Win one. It's to win one.
Right. You still got to win one, but like you're doing everything that he said you would do to get there, and now you got to finish it off. But yeah, bulletin board material, I'd be using it for sure. Any motivation that can give you an edge. The Panthers want to shove it down their throat because they've never won one, and they're just getting back to the Stanley Cup final for the second time. Meanwhile, you know, Vegas has had all this success. It's like the Panthers need to really take some pride here and come out and make a statement to say, look, I know you guys are flashy, the Golden Knights, and you guys are here, and you guys always win. But now it's our time right now. So we'll see how they respond and if Paul Maurice is using any bulletin board material.
I'm just going to sprinkle in some viewer comments here. And by the way, Moose, how many breaks do you want to take here in the first hour?
You can take as many as you want. It doesn't matter to me.
How many is ideal for you?
Let's take 3.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to stick with it here for, well, if that's, then we're past the first commercial break time. Well, we'll do it in a couple minutes here. I want to hook in. I got to tell you about going fishing on the weekend.
Yes.
Hang on. I'll get there. Producer Clark, his dad, Rod Monroe, has written in and says, going to be a great Cup final. See, I think so for sure. And just to tee up hour 2 a little bit, Serena's just, I had to take her to task this morning because she's all hung up saying it's going to be a bad final and she's against the U.S. Sun Belt. I shouldn't speak for her. You just wait until, did she get into that when you were here? Much at all?
Just a little.
Okay.
A little.
Well, every day she brings it up here, and she says it's going to be a bad final. And Ken Danico from the NHL Network, who's won at least 2 Stanley Cups, maybe 3, is saying this could be one of the greatest Stanley Cup finals we've had in years. And I'm like, you need to watch it too. You're just selling it because you're on NHL Network. Clearly, I think it's going to be great. These are the 2 teams that I know the best. Friends on both sides. And as somebody wrote in here earlier, said the good thing is neither team's won a Stanley Cup. That's very exciting. That's a great story right there.
I love it.
Right? 1-1 was the season series between the 2. Well, I'm not reading all the comments here. Ryan in Toronto says it makes sense to me. You're not playing for the Cup, just covering it. What are we talking about? That I don't need to be at every game? I think that's the sense.
Yeah.
But I will say this, it's been a lifelong dream of mine. Okay, you're going to get some stuff here on the RP show that you don't normally get, and this ain't bad, Darren. You don't need to clutch your heart and worry. But I didn't, because I've known me for 50 years. I've always known what I wanted. But I never really understood what anybody outside of me thought that I wanted. And it doesn't really matter what other people think. It doesn't matter. What other people think of you isn't their business. But to say that I wanted to be at the Stanley Cup Finals for 50 years seems to have like shocked people. I am Caitlyn Jenner without the dress. I'm Bruce Jenner. I'm tired of not living as myself. And I want to be the Florida hockey guy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can see the meme right there. Rod is Caitlyn Jenner without the dress. Here he is. He wants to cover the Stanley Cup. Is that so wrong? So I didn't get a tear in my eye. I can't remember the last time I did about anything. But the old me would have really teared up about the fact that I get to go to the Stanley Cup final and be in the press box and be around all this. It's pretty exciting. Kevin the Medium says Panthers in 4. Was it you, Moose, that was talking about you or Serena? One of the two. John Ohms says, and how many coaches has Vegas gone through in the 6 years? Wow. Was it you saying that or was it her?
I think it was her.
Okay. She couldn't believe how good the coaches have been.
I know. That
they've had. But if you go back, you got to go back and watch. There's a tell in what Bill Foley said the night they were introducing the Vegas Golden Knights on stage in whatever hotel they were in Vegas. It was sort of like, yeah, we're going to win a Stanley Cup within 6 years or else. It was pretty much what he said. And who at that time would have understood that he meant, if you don't win a Stanley Cup, I'm firing your ass.
I know.
Or I'm trading your ass, which is exactly what he meant.
Yeah.
But nobody was thinking that at the time because who does that?
I know.
Bill Foley does, and the Vegas Golden Knights. So there is the opening segment on the Stanley Cup. Commercial coming up, Moose, and we'll get to all the rest and more hockey when we return. But the topics include the Canadian Football League preseason, NLL Memorial Cup, NBA Finals, the Blue Jays, everything else, because it is Canada's favorite daytime sports talk show and Atlanta's NHL show on WQEE podcast, and streaming.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Is it time to take your event online? Bring it to IKS Live. We've got a fully customized virtual event platform with remote guest support for your next fundraiser, talk show, conference, performance, and more. IKS Live offers live streaming to Facebook Live and YouTube and pre-recorded capabilities, both in our studio with green screen available and on location with pre-production and post-production services. Visit us at ikslive.ca.
Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
Does this look familiar? Your fans deserve an incredible arena experience. It's time for an upgrade. Stunning graphics. Revenue opportunities are just the beginning with our in-venue display systems and scoring technology. Let us help you find the best solution for your facility. EDG, always delivering the best fan experience.
And welcome back, everybody. The RP Show continues on this Tuesday. It's episode number 1009 of your favorite daytime sports talk show. And thanks for hanging with us today on WQEE Radio in Atlanta, where we are Atlanta's NHL show and YouTube. A little bit of a different look today. Moose and I are not live on Game Plus television, but only for the week. But you can thank WQEE and streaming for that. And this is a Darren DuPont produced show. And if I may, it's going quite swimmingly. Wilf in Steinbach, Manitoba writes in Moose and says, "Hi, Rod and Moose. I believe the Panthers will win in 6 games because of goaltending." Hey, it ain't even close. And I was reading the game notes again this morning. There's like 7 records that Sergei Bobrovsky is on the verge of breaking if he continues this play. I'm not going to get into what it is, but he's on pace. You know how that works. And I don't want to jinx anything, but that's Wilf and Steinbach. He says the Panthers in 6. Jim Wagner from Balgoni writes in. He says, "Good day, all. Chilling with the RP crew. Now we're rolling." I said Vegas in 6. What did you say?
Florida.
I can't remember. Florida in 7.
Yeah.
I'm writing that down.
Good.
And hold everybody right in with their predictions. That would be fantastic if you did. And before we do switch gears, we do have breaking news today on this Tuesday. The Washington Capitals have hired Spencer Carberry as their next coach, bringing back a favorite of the organization to fill the job he envisioned to get years ago. The team announced the move Tuesday morning, bringing Carberry back into the fold after he spent the past 2 seasons as an assistant with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Before that, Carberry was considered the heir apparent to Peter Laviolette because of his time with the Capitals' top minor league affiliate, the Hershey Bears. He was with them for 3 seasons. But he got his first NHL job on Sheldon Keefe's staff with Toronto. I got one for you before we get to the football. See how I'm hooking everybody in there? I want your take on this. And I'm going to spend way more time on it in hour 2 when the Golden Girl gets in here. But in the NHL game notes, Moose, this morning or last night, whenever they posted them, it said the Golden Knights can become the second major professional sports team in Las Vegas to win a championship following the Las Vegas Aces of the WNBA in 2022. Because I was like, did the Raiders win a Super Bowl that I wasn't aware of?
Right.
And I'm like, the Aces? What are you talking about? And this is not a gender thing at all. I compared myself to Caitlyn Jenner last hour. If anybody, or last segment, if anybody's inclusive, it's me. But stop it. Stop squared. The WNBA is not a major sports league, and I don't even know why they would try and present it as such. Now, she thinks it is, however. So how about you? How about that?
No, the WNBA, excuse me, needs more credit. It's a professional sports league. It needs to be included in all these conversations. Is it a major pro sports league? No, it's not. And I would consider major by the amount of TV coverage and tickets you're selling and things like that. It's not a major pro sports league. I hate that it's not, but it's just not.
It's just the way it is.
Yeah, it can be, but it's just not, Bill Burr's got a great stand-up comedy about that. He's like, all the women should be out there supporting, the WNBA, fill in the stands. But it's not really about that either. It's just, you're right. Sometimes it's just the way that it is, and they'll continue to work at it, and hopefully the league will continue to grow.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Karen. Her name is Karen. She writes in and says, Vegas, like Tucker Carlson, will win. That's from Karen. Jeff, the Stamps fan, says, Florida is hot, Panthers in 5. From Jack Fulton in Vulcan, Alberta, he says, I don't care the sport of the moment. Rod and Moose make the day for sports fans across the continent. Love you both.
Thanks, Jack.
Love you too, Jack. Thanks for checking in. From Allie in Texarkana, she says, morning, RP squad. Here for my girl, Serena. Don't pump her head any bigger. She'll be here an hour or two. Looking at her right now. She's got her opinions, of course. And John in Winnipeg says, congrats on being the Florida hockey guy. I'm so jelly that you got this. My dream too, bro. NHL finals. And Jeff, the Stamps fan, goes on to say, sorry, WNBA is not as compelling as men's basketball. And by the way, listen, before we move on, what's a major sports league? To me, unless something's changed, it's the core 4. MLB, NBA, NHL, NFL. End of story. And that's the CFL ain't, the MLS ain't, NASCAR ain't. Yeah. Unless I missed something.
No, you're bang on. The core 4 are the core 4 for a reason, right? They're the big 4 sports leagues. And, you even look at the overseas leagues. Like, I know you don't want to talk soccer, but you start getting into the Premier League, which is becoming more prevalent on this side of the pond. In North America, has more fans. It is going to have a greater chance of being a core North American sports league ahead of some of these smaller fledgling leagues that play, in Canada and the U.S. So,
well,
it's just what it is.
Something changed in me. I don't really know what it is, but you say you don't want to talk soccer. You talk about whatever the hell you want. I'm not going to talk about soccer, but you're the boss. Anybody talk about whatever the hell they want. I don't care. Just don't expect me to get into it. It's not like I haven't tried it. God knows there's enough sports out there that I'm into.
Yeah.
I'm good. Similar to golf. Now, you asked if I went fishing on the weekend with the Dodge boys. I went fishing with one of them, Bradley. And all I'll say is Brad and I got a special connection, I feel, and he can't get anybody else of his brothers to go fishing with him. His dad goes with him from time to time, but there's 4 boys in the family. Brian's got to split his time up, right?
Yeah.
So as we were fishing, and I'd never been fishing. Just hang on for a sec. That's why this is the Rod Pedersen Show and not Sports Center. Personal story here. If I'd been fishing, it was when I was 7 at Katepwa.
Yeah.
Didn't even really count. With a plastic fishing rod, like a toy one. This is the first time. And if you're going to go fishing, you probably want to go fishing in Florida, the fishing capital of the world. Yeah. No, I didn't say chicken capital. That's Wynyard, Darren's hometown.
Good memory.
I'm aware of all this. I didn't kill all the brain cells. But as we're standing there on the banks of the river fishing, I'm learning all these things. And Brad turned to me. He's only like 11. Turns to me and he goes, "Do you find this boring?" And I'm like, I never stopped to think of that at all. I'm having too much fun. And he goes, "Well, everybody says it's boring. I like it." And I'm like, "No, I think I could become a fisherman." And then we caught this fish. And Brad was like, you saw the video of it. You saw the video. It's on my social media, right? And Brad's like, "Oh, it's a snakehead. We got to kill it." And I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "It's invasive. It eats the other fish. You're supposed to kill him if you..." He knows everything. I'm like, "How do we kill it?" And he goes, "Well, we got to get the hook out." I got pliers in my kit. Raced over and got him. Like, the kid is Bob Izumi. And I'm here for it. So this is something I tried and I liked. And somebody went, "What? What?"
The Bob Izumi reference got me. I haven't seen or heard the name Bob Izumi since I was a kid watching TSN at noon on a Saturday afternoon.
Brad's the new Bob Izumi. So, and while we were doing that, Serena was walking laps because she was getting her steps in and stuff and everything, and working out. And I said, "Okay, we got to go to Bass Pro. I need a vest. I need a special hat. I need all these things." I'm into it now.
Yeah.
So I tried soccer, wasn't for me. Tried golf, wasn't for me. Fishing, I think it's kind of cool.
That's fun.
John Ohm, "I miss my summers at Katepwa Beach, Saskatchewan. Good times." Well, John, you can drive back at any time. Carlos in Indianapolis says, "Only so many leagues we as individuals can keep up with." That's exactly it. Troy in Toronto says, "Fishing is almost as relaxing as meditation." I don't want to get on a recovery note here, but I will for a second, because Troy in Toronto, he's my recovery buddy. And I just found that it took my mind off everything else. I had to keep my mind on the line and which way to have the latch and not to hook Brad when I was throwing my hook into the water. All these things. Yeah. It's like playing music, keeping beat in your head. You can't think about other stuff, or playing with your dog. You know what I mean? It's all these things that take your mind away from your problems, and it's a nice holiday. And all of a sudden, I'm like, now I get it. 50 years I've waited to go to the Stanley Cup finals and fishing, and I had to come to Florida to do it. My own fault. Ryan in Toronto says, "I also love the Bob Izumi reference." Okay, I'm going to get back on point. I apologize, everybody, for going off target. Did I even read the NBA? No, I didn't. Jimmy Butler scored 28 points. The visiting Miami Heat beat the Boston Celtics 103-84 in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals. The Heat, who almost blew a 3-0 lead, will face the Western Conference champion Denver Nuggets in the NBA Finals. Game 1 is in Denver on Thursday night. I feel like I could go on a real tangent here on how much the delay will hurt the Nuggets and the Panthers, but I'm going to wait until Serena's here next hour because she didn't want to talk about anything else really but hockey. And the Blue Jays, 0.5 after a much-needed day off. The Toronto Blue Jays will try to make up for some lost ground in the standings tonight when they host the Milwaukee Brewers in the first of a 3-game series. The 28-26 Blue Jays are last in the 5-team American League East. It's Yusei Kikuchi going to the mound for Toronto against the Brewers' righty Adrian Hauser. And I'll wind this up on this. Theo Rochette scored twice, and netminder William Russo stopped 35 of 36 shots as the Quebec Rempart edged the Seattle Thunderbirds 3-1 at the Memmer in Kamloops. With their second win, the Quebec champion Remparts are going straight to Sunday's final. The WHL champion Thunderbirds and host Kamloops Blazers are 1-1, and the OHL champion Peterborough Petes are 0-2. The Petes play the Rempart tonight. I've got more, but I'll stop there for a second because we promised we would talk about the Canadian Football League, and we've talked about everything else but to this point, so let's do it. Leanne has written in. She says, I can barely hear Moose. She goes, I picked Vegas in 6. That's on me because I asked Moose earlier to turn his mic down, so it was maybe too loud in my headphones. But
okay.
Darren, is there room to boost yours?
Yeah, I'll bring it in a lot closer for now. And then we will. I'll boost it up next time we take a little break. But my audio controls are just off my screen. But we should be good. I did take Florida in 7. Just so you were paying attention. Florida in 7.
He's got Florida in 7. I got Vegas in 6. And a few things here. Leonard Ferguson writes in. He says, "RP, be careful fishing in Florida. The alligator just bit off a guy's hand the other day." Hey, my name's Rod Pedersen, not Chubbs Peterson.
But
we're good.
That's the only thing I didn't do.
What?
It's not crocodiles, but the only thing we didn't do when I was down there is we didn't visit Carol Baskin's compound, wherever she was hanging out.
She's over by Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay. That'll be next
convenient.
time. But the thing is, with that hook, Brad's hook went through the fish's mouth and out its eye.
Ooh.
And by the way, Brad threw the fish back. So there's a fish swimming around like that alligator in Happy Gilmore with one eye. You're welcome. And Jeff the Stamps fan says, RP, when you first dreamed of covering the Stanley Cup Finals, I bet you never imagined Las Vegas and Miami. No. But just as when I was interviewing to be the voice of the Calgary Flames and Ken King, their president said to me, "Why do you want to be the voice of the Calgary Flames?" In my mind, before I said it, I thought, I don't care that it's the Calgary Flames. I'd be the voice of the Hartford Whalers. I just want to be the voice of an NHL. And he goes, "Let me guess. You'd be the voice of any team." He didn't give me a chance to even answer his question because that's kind of the way Ken King was. So when I thought of envisioning covering the Stanley Cup Final, clearly I didn't think of Las Vegas and Miami, but I'll take it.
Mm-hmm.
Craig, our director of scouting, says Florida in 6. And Leanne says the Memorial Cup has been really boring this year. Thought the WHL crowd would be more rowdy, but the Dub final was better than this. Whatevs. I didn't enjoy the 10-2 game the other day. Kamloops had a good practice against Peterborough, but what are you going to do? Wait a minute. I thought the Dubs sucked at the Memmer. Oh. Okay. And Wayne in Victoria, BC says, I picked Vegas in 6. Canadian Football League. Here are your scores from what they're calling preseason week B. Montreal beat Ottawa Friday night 22-21 on a last-second field goal. By the way, don't expect me to read or remember any of the names of the players because most of them we'll never hear of again. Hamilton beat Toronto 27-22. The name Bo Levi Mitchell might ring a bell. I think he'll be around for a while. I believe he tossed 2 touchdowns in the game for Hamilton at the Coffee Cup, at the Donut Box, Tim Hortons Field. Yes, Americans, we have a stadium called Tim Hortons Field. Stop laughing. Winnipeg beat Edmonton 25-23. The Elks snatched defeat from the jaws of victory again. Backup Winnipeg quarterback, who's not even a household name in his own house, ran 46 yards for a touchdown in the, yeah, you heard me right. Rookie Bomber quarterback. For $1 million, I couldn't tell you his name. but he romped 46 yards for the winning touchdown. Bombers win 25-23. The Elks finish the preseason at 0-2. And then the finale. I see your comment, Jack. I'll get to it. The finale. The Saskatchewan Roughriders beat the British Columbia Lions 30-27 at Canada's football shrine and in Canada's football capital, Mosaic Stadium. It's quite a game. I watched the live stream over here in my backyard. You now, Moose, have been to the Hacienda, so you know how this all works. Kind of a nice little setup we got here, huh?
Oh, yeah.
And the live stream was fantastic. It was mucho excelente. Really good. And Saskatchewan came back to one. I thought it was a quite cleanly played game. You could read my weekend column if you really want all my thoughts on it, but I got to give credit to the Riders' O-line. They didn't give up one sack. This after a season where they gave up a club record in a year. I think it was 77. The offensive coordinator did a good enough job of putting a simple defense out there and play calling. Everybody executed it. And the Riders came back from 2 double-digit deficits in the second half to win the football game. Everybody went home happy. What more do you want?
Yeah. Thought it was great. It's exactly what you want. Quarterbacks played well, I think, did Mason Fine have a pick six on his first throw, but threw 2 late touchdowns. Varga. And, we saw Jake Dolagala play well. I think there was a lot of positives to take out of that game if you're Saskatchewan. So the results don't matter, but I think you have to be happy. You look at Kelly Jeffries. You look at this group. I think there's just so many good things right now with the Saskatchewan Roughriders.
You're supposed to say it. Dolagala.
Dolagala.
That's how you're supposed to say it. Jeff, the Stamps fan, don't be a troll, Jeff. We're talking CFL, and that's what you want. Don't ruin it. Jeff says, today's CFL third stringers is tomorrow's Riders starter, and goes on to say the Riders are still taking penalties. I mean, you can sit and run down the team if you want, but whatever. Riders took 7 penalties. BEC took 7 penalties. We were saying last segment how there's just so much going on. I'm not getting into the minutiae of what's going on with all the teams in the Canadian Football League, but I think the fact that I watched and paid attention to most of the games is quite noble.
Yeah.
Given the fact that my focus is on the Stanley Cup playoffs and going to the Stanley Cup final. Having said that, I mean, I had somebody in the league text me the other day and just say, hey, can you find out about this injury in Rider Camp? I'm like, nope, can't. And I appreciate you asking, but I'm not doing it. And now I got football guys here in Florida saying, can you get me a report on this player and that player? And I'm like, well, I've been doing that. Yeah. But I'm not watching it all of myself. Craig, our director of scouting, says Riders' protection was good and promising. I think everything was promising. And let's just walk this back for a second. There is something about the preseason and what I call 2 games a year, 20 years, 40 preseason games. It's our good friend Brad Sham, the voice of the Dallas Cowboys, said it best. Preseason games don't count, but they matter. And they matter not just because of an individual's performance, but the fans leaving the stadium. I would like to think that the Rider fans that were there, and I see the Riders are getting pashawed because the attendance was so bad. None of the games looked overly well attended to me, but whatever, we're not here to talk about that today. But they came back with a stunning second half, fourth quarter comeback to win. That does not stick in the fans' minds. Like, when I go to the preseason games of the Panthers here, whether the team wins or loses, that's a thing. And I got to think it's a thing in the players' heads too.
Yeah. I think it is. I mean, wins and losses still matter. I mean,
yeah.
Excuse me. They set the tone. They set the tone. When you lose games, it doesn't matter about the process. I mean, you see good teams, they typically don't even lose the preseason games because it's all about a winning mentality, winning culture. And the coaches, even with the second team, the third team, the backups, there's pressure to win, not just play well. And I think that's the case in any league.
Jim from Balgonian says, why would you get back on topic, Roddy? The off-topic stuff is why most of us are here. I love it. You're talking about fishing with Bradley or whatever. I mean, I got stories till hell won't have it. It was 3 days off the air. And to be honest, part of the reason why we took Memorial Day off, it was Darren and I think you and I, when we put our heads together, do come up with some pretty good decisions between the two of us, Darren. Yeah. But we're like, we're not on Game Plus anyways. It's Memorial Day in the States. Why don't I just take Monday off and we'll come back Tuesday? That's how we reached the decision, everybody. It was a high-level executive decision.
Yes, it was.
That's how we reached it. 902-518-3033. We've covered the real serious sports talk, if you will. How about this? Ryan Blaney pulled away late to win the rescheduled Coca-Cola 600 Monday at Charlotte Speedway, giving team owner Roger Penske a sweep of the Memorial Day weekend's top races in the USA. Joseph Newgarden won a record-extending 19th Indy 500 Sunday for Team Penske. It marked the first time Team Penske's earned a sweep of the two races in the same year. I kind of miss the racing. I got into it during the COVID, and there was just something about it. And let's be honest. Birds of a feather flock together. I'll never be the racing guy. That's just not me. I don't think I'm better than those guys. I just know that I'm different than those guys. Yeah. And I was going to, for those that have just found our show, particularly those listening in Atlanta right now on WQEE, I was looking for something to do in COVID. Weren't we all, Darren?
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I couldn't get you to come to the racing with me, and that's fine. Jared Dumba came with me.
That's right.
And I was like, hey, racing. Can I say racing chicks?
Sure.
There's something about them. And the smell of the burnt gasoline in the air was cool. You know,
oh, yeah.
The concession was out of this world. Next level. Where do you go from taco in a bag to deep fried pierogies and sour cream to, as my mom would say, till hell won't have it?
Yeah.
I had a problem with this, however, that when they were singing the national anthem, I'm sure I told you about this, but none of those guys took their hats off. Not one.
Yeah.
There was a whole bunch of guys down in the corner of the racetrack on a platform. And I understand for those listening in Georgia, don't burn me at the stake because I know how big NASCAR is there. But I was like, can you show some flipping respect to your country by taking your hat off? Is it too much to ask?
I know.
And I do remember, you know Jared well. He's a very, very big fan of yours, by the way. And I'll get to that in a second. But I'm like, Jared's like, they're not doing it to be disrespectful. They just didn't think about it. I'm like, same thing. What do you think about that?
No, you're right. It's just culture, race culture, you know?
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call it. You know, we joke around and say redneck culture, but it's not. I mean, it's just the race fans, you know, outside, whatever. And it is fun. You got to remember, I spent a lot of time at the great paved oval in Saskatoon as their public address announcer. I spent a couple of years there. Herm Hordell got me into it. And him and I became really fast friends. And I had a blast learning all about the nuances of racing. I mean, play-by-play and announcing the cars coming around, that's one thing. I had a guy by the name of Trevor Gowan. He was a radio guy in Prince Albert.
I know Trevor.
Huge car guy. He would be in the infield providing what we called the color commentary. And he was so knowledgeable and good. Yeah, it was a lot of fun being around the track, and I miss it.
I miss it too. It was just cool.
Yeah.
And I want to go to a NASCAR event here, and I will. We should put a poll up. You want us to stay on track or stay off track? You want us to go off-roading? Because God knows I can. At 902-518-3033, the number to text us here in the Florida studio. I'm so happy you came down here, Moose. I thought about it every day because there's just so much cool stuff, and you now understand a lot of what's cool about it.
Yeah.
But I'm also coming home in a couple of weeks' time, and I'm excited about that too. It's a really great life being able to go around all these places. Jeff, the Stamps fan, says NASCAR fans are some of the nicest folks you'll meet. Oh, I don't doubt that for a second. And the one thing that I really loved about the live racing was the danger. Somebody could die at any second, whether it be a car slip off the track or a tire go flying into the crowd. I mean, I'm a heck of a lot more reserved than I used to be. That the danger used to really hook me in. Maybe going to a nightclub in a bad area of town in a very large city I'd never been in. I used to, like, who would do that? We did. Ryan in Toronto says Panthers in 6. Ted in Red Deer says you play to win the game, exhibition or not. No, you do, but I want to say something about that. And Trevor in Winnipeg says hopefully Edmonton has a few more people in the seats when the real games start. They got so much work to do up there. I would not want to be Victor Cui because, I mean, Chris Jones has his hands full on the football side. I think that's highly evident. To go out and mend bridges in the community and shake hands and kiss ass and do all the things they got to do, that is a lot of work.
Yeah.
And as we've seen in today's society, lesser and lesser people want to do it.
I know.
I don't know what the answer is for the Edmonton Elks. I have no idea. Other than winning, I think that would help. Edmonton seems like a city that if the team was actually good, people would come out. In Calgary, that's not good enough. They might even have more work ahead of them there in Calgary. I don't know. But I wouldn't want to be them. I wouldn't even know where to start. Carlos in Indianapolis says some of this show's best moments come off audibles. Calling an audible. You jump in any time, Moose. Like, I was thinking about this when I was shaking the dew off my lily in the last commercial break. You said we could take 3 commercial breaks in the hour, and in our first one, we saw we lost 25% of the audience because they changed the station. So we're like, we're not doing that again. I could sit here by myself and talk for 2 solid hours easily and tell stories. Not even a problem. And I remember a producer at the television station I used to work at. You might know him. Let's call him Kevin. He once said, you could just turn the camera on and let Rod go. I could walk away. Problem was, he did. And that's why we're all sitting here today.
Isn't it?
Yes, it is. Very shortly after that, I realized I should be sending him a thank you card. Yeah. Jeff, the Stamps fan, says Calgary's issues are complicated. The Calgary Stampeders have just changed their Facebook status to "It's complicated."
Oh my gosh.
David in Winnipeg. Sorry, you have a comment on that?
No, it just takes it back to Facebook statuses. It's complicated. They still do that?
Did I just snort?
Yeah.
David in Winnipeg, David Asplund, says, were you guys shocked as I was to see Caleros and the first team offense out as long as they were? My money says they don't play versus Sask on Friday. Shout out Winnipeg, where we're very big in Winnipeg, channel 1190 on Bell MTS cable, just not this week. I was stunned by all of it. But things are changing. I need to understand, not just in football, but in life, things do change, and change is a good thing. There was always a way that football was done. We all know that. Can we not say that maybe Mike O'Shea's ahead of the curve on a lot of this stuff? Yes. I didn't think Caleros would go at all, let alone play as much as he did, and I guess he played good. I didn't watch much of the game. I watched the box score. He wasn't the one that won the game. But are you seeing Darren as more of the football guy than me, just a difference in how things are being approached. Player safety aside, that's the whole, we can all see that.
Yeah.
But in terms of personnel in these games, I find it quite interesting.
And every team has a different approach, right? Every coaching staff has a slightly different idea of what they're trying to accomplish. Some guys want to make sure their starters are a little more game ready and give them the extra reps. Other guys really want to make decisions on some cuts and roster moves they have to make. So that'll be reflected in who plays. If you're seeing the starters play, more in Winnipeg, for example, then they're pretty comfortable with some of the final decisions they have to make, and they want to make sure they're ready for week one, get Caleros the reps and however much he wants to play. When you see more of the backups play, it's more about, we got some hard decisions to make here down in the depths of our lineup. So you can kind of read the tea leaves, I guess, into what each team's trying to do.
Checking in from the Peanut Gallery regarding the Calgary Stampeders issues. And for those that are uninitiated, that don't know, and by the way, it'll be a lot of hockey talk in hour 2, so enjoy it now in hour 1. And I told you we could go on at least 2 hours every day. Calgary Stampeders have been the model franchise of this century and one of the worst drawing teams. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense. And the thing is, we're not going to sit here and talk about it. I don't know what it would take. I've spent enough time in Calgary, went to college there. I know the people. They're my friends. I don't understand what it is. You sit and talk to the Stampeders staff, they're befuddled too. They have their thoughts. They feel that when they were purchased, the football team, by the parent NHL Flames, that everything went out the window. Marketing, community initiatives to what they were before. I don't know. Again, I'm glad it's not my problem. Leanne says, Stampeders always have a good team, but I can't remember the last time that place sold out. Not even Labor Day. From T. Will in Winnipeg, he says, are there issues complicated, though? Are there issues complicated, though? Well, clearly they are. They win and they can't sell tickets, so what's worse than that?
Right. It's tough.
Jack in Vulcan, Alberta, says, interesting comment, Rod. Funny when we're able to get to a place where we can say thank you for the trials in our life. I feel like we're getting closer and closer and closer to telling more details of my history with the Rough Riders because not that many people know, and apparently people still care. I mean, I was over it the night that I left the building. I was relieved, but I think people are just starting to now get over it.
Yeah.
And I can go back and cheer for the Rough Rider. Hell, I'm wearing a shirt today. I'm over it. Safe Moondog writes in and says, what was the Riders' attendance on Friday? I don't know, but they didn't announce the attendance. They introduced them.
Boom, boom.
You like that, eh?
Yeah.
I
need to, if this is going to get real Letterman, we won't have sound effects, Rod. I'll actually have a drum set up here. Boom, boom. Right?
That would be great.
I'll be what's oh man, why can't I think of his name right now? You called me a sidekick right off the top with the bald
Paul
Schaefer.
Paul Yes.
Schaefer. I'll actually be playing the guitar or playing the drums and doing the live sound effects. It could be really great.
I hope everybody's enjoying the CFL talk now because, by the way, next hour, Serena will be here, and she don't give a rat's ass about the CFL.
It's the Stanley Cup.
So get it all out now because it's the Cup. Leanne says the Stampeders fans whine about the stadium. If Riders were that consistent, I'd sit on the old hemorrhoid hill. So, of course, it's just an excuse not to go. Yeah, I said we could make these topic-specific days, and maybe on Friday we'll get into what the issues are for these teams. And I'll read what the actual poll question is for Key Auto Group next hour because it is regarding the Stanley Cup. Actually, Moose, let's take that break.
Yes.
We got a lot of texts have come in here. Norm Fongo's written in and says, stay off topic, Rod. I love your stories. That's from Norm Funk. So what do you want? I got some really good ones. Just put them on the tee for me, Fongo. I can go up. Yeah. You see my mind's gone, like, again, 18 different roads.
Yeah.
So we'll take a break and we'll start on one of them. When we come back for hour 2, we're live on YouTube today. No Game Plus television, WQEE podcast, and all other streaming.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Is it time to take your event online? Bring it to IKS Live. We've got a fully customized virtually with remote guest support for your next fundraiser, talk show, conference, performance, and more. IKS Live offers live streaming to Facebook Live and YouTube and pre-recorded capabilities, both in our studio with green screen available and on location with pre-production and post-production services. Visit us at ikslive.ca.
Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
Does this look familiar? Your fans deserve an incredible arena experience. It's time for an upgrade. Stunning graphics. Revenue opportunities are just the beginning with our in-venue display systems and scoring technology. Let us help you find the best solution for your facility. EDG, always delivering the best fan experience.
Hi, everybody. We're live. It's hour 2 of the RP show. It's a very special looking program today. Darren Moose DuPont is with me. Are you up, Moose? Can the people see you?
Yeah.
In the NHL's Bermuda campus? You can? Okay. We're down here in the Florida studio for a while. And, hey, if you love Moose and you have questions for him, get him out now because he's only with us here in the opening segment of hour 2. And then the Golden Girl is coming in. Serena Taylor later on here in hour 2. I don't know. Listen, I almost need to go fishing or go meditate in the corner. because my mind's just racing. It's like a NASCAR of squirrels right now. That's what my mind is. Troy in Toronto is watching, writes in. He says, I'm stealing that, Rod. Same applies to the Oakland A's. I feel like the screen just went black. Oh, maybe it's me. Are you good? Do I have you?
I think we're okay.
Okay. No, it's probably just me.
Okay.
Fake Gainer has written this on Twitter. And he says there's an expansion draft and you can only protect one Golden Girl. Who is it? And why is it B. Arthur? Okay. I'll stop. I'm sorry.
A Betty White fan.
I would say Betty White, too.
Yeah.
I would say 2 votes for Betty White. Okay. Tomorrow's poll question for Key Auto Group will be, who's the best Golden Girl?
Yes.
And I will tell you that the reason that I love watching the Golden Girls so much is because it reminds me, you're not old enough, Darren. You're not old enough. It reminds me of the mid-'80s. It debuted in 1985. So I was in my early teens when on a Saturday night, I would be home. Not out terrorizing the friggin' town, which would come a couple of years later.
Yeah.
And getting in trouble and blah, 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 blah. So I would be home watching it 9 p.m. Saturday night, the Golden Girls, and watching it with my mom. And it was awesome. I think that's why I love the Golden Girls so much. Plus, it's funny as hell.
Yeah.
But 902-518-3033, the number to text us in the Florida studio. You can also write us in the chat on YouTube. We are on the radio today, WQEE in Atlanta. We are Atlanta's NHL show. We're not on Game Plus television because of a programming double booking, if we will. That's all I can. That's the best way to describe it, probably. A programming double booking. So we got streaming and we got radio. Shoot, I'm happy as hell.
Oh, yeah.
And a little later on here in hour 2, as I mentioned, the Golden Girl, Serena Taylor, will be with us. But for all those CFL fans that were watching in hour 1, we spent more time on the CFL preseason than anybody else will. I'll tell you that for free.
Yeah.
And I want those Rider fans to join us in Calgary. I'm coming home in a couple of weeks, and I'll be back to watch some CFL football. And with Woody's RV World in Engelheim, you can join us at McMahon Stadium in Calgary for Saskatchewan at Calgary. It's June 24th, the game. Woody's RV World and Engelheim presenting the RP Show Summer Football Road Trip. You can join us June 23rd to the 25th. Charter transportation from Regina to Saskatoon to Calgary and back. 2-night accommodations at Hotel Clique Calgary Airport with complimentary breakfasts. Exclusive pre- and post-game parties as hosted by moi. Ticket to the Riders and Stamps, of course. And now Woody's would like you to bring a friend or a loved one on them. All you got to do, purchase an RV at Woody's. Who's not going to do that? And if you buy a ticket to join us on the football road trip, Woody's will buy you an additional ticket. Bring your best bud, your kid, your partner. Heck, bring your grandma, that old Golden Girl. Tickets are available now at rodpeterson.com. Now, we're not going to talk CFL the rest of the way. We are going to talk hockey, though, in the poll question today for Key Auto Group. The all-new Sportage reimagines innovation in motion and urban SUV design with all the comforts for your next adventure. Order yours today at keyyorkton.com or by calling 306-783-2772. The 2023 Kia Sportage, movement that inspires. The poll question for Key Auto Group is, who's going to win the Stanley Cup? Because we now know it's between the Florida Panthers and the Vegas Golden Knights. And right now, 55% saying it'll be the Florida Panthers. 55%. I was going to ask you if you could go look up Bet Regal's odds moves, because to be honest, I still don't really know how to look this stuff up.
Yeah.
What I saw was that Vegas is favored by a goal and a half for game 1 Saturday night. And that shouldn't surprise anybody. But you don't have to do it now. But at some point, I'd love to know what the odds makers are saying. Vegas got to be favored, right?
I've got it. In game 1, Vegas is favored. The over-under's 5.5 goals. And they're just narrowly favored. So I don't have the spread for the goals, but if it's 1.5 for Vegas, that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, it's Vegas right now.
But it doesn't say
favorite.
what games they're picking. It doesn't say what games they're picking, right? For
No,
a
it
number of
doesn't.
games.
Yeah, it doesn't say the number of games. I haven't found the outright here in the series, but that's just for game 1.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then I'm not as dumb as I thought. Michael Wynn is watching in Winnipeg. It says, Dream Stanley Cup for you, Rod Pedersen. Amazing. Thank you, Michael, for checking in. He's the owner of Ice Time Sporting Goods. You met him. He came to our watch party at Hooters, which, by the way, we're going to have a Hooters trip before I leave Florida here in a couple weeks' time. I always find the positive in everything. I love it here more than I've ever loved anywhere, but I'm also excited to come home and spend the summer there. The heat's getting to be a little much.
Yeah.
And I always have fun up there. It was like when we left Grey Eagle to go over to Ace Casino. Our sales coordinator, Kevin, was like, I know you loved Grey Eagle, but you're really going to love Ace. I'm like, I love anywhere.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree.
Start spreading the news. We're live on YouTube, WQEE, and podcast. What do you want us to talk about, everybody? It's 1:11 Eastern, by the way, 11:11 Mountain. That just noticed. I just noticed that. I mean, one thing that I want to say, I don't know what it is. And with 1:11, it's visualize a positive outcome. And I've been doing that for a while and going to the Stanley Cup final, living here. What the hell do I have to complain about? But you got to do what's best for you. I've been doing that. I would love to be the Canadian Elite Basketball League channel, but I'm not sure enough people would care. Like, I don't know. We've talked with their people, and they don't get any media coverage. And I don't know why that is. But people seem to be finding out about it. Like tonight, the reason I bring this up is there's a doubleheader tonight. Ottawa at Scarborough in the east. Or is it Scarborough or Ottawa? I don't know, because they don't do it the way that they used to. And Calgary and Niagara in the other. But somehow or another, they're figuring out where these games are, because there was over 7,000 in Canada Life Center for the Winnipeg Sea Bears first game, and they sold out Winsport for Calgary's first game. So somehow the fans are figuring it out, Darren.
Yeah.
But we can't sit and talk about the CEBL for 2 hours every day because not enough people are interested. Do you see a day where people do get real interested?
Maybe. I mean, you look at the CEBL, you talk about that, and you know what they're doing in Winnipeg is outstanding. I mean, the crowd was awesome. It was, the Elam ending has been a great addition to what the CEBL does. You need every market, though, to be all in like that for the league to really take off. One market's not going to do it, but it really helps. And, man, that's fun for Winnipeg. I don't know if it's going to last and if it's going to continue to be great like that, but, man, when I see the videos of the crowd going nuts on the game-winning shot and everything else, it makes me think that maybe there's a chance, and that's pretty exciting.
That's why I'm excited about where things are going for us with our show, and it's very exciting. By the way, next segment, Serena Taylor will be here live, the Golden Girl, and we'll be talking Stanley Cup playoffs the rest of the way. But my life, well, the reason why I'm going down this road is the Canadian Elite Basketball League is a tremendous product. And I talked to my friends in Winnipeg that went to the game, and they're like, wow, this is great. It's great basketball. The atmosphere is amazing. It's like mini NBA. So it's like, if you got a great product, you guys will be fine. Yeah. We'll give them a little bit of our attention. With this show, I've been down this road before. You were in the meeting with the advertising executive here in Boca Raton. He's like, why is your show so popular with the Florida hockey fans? Why is your show so popular in Atlanta? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't stop to think about this stuff. And when I got going down the road in recovery, there were people in the industry going, how come you're getting invited to do this? How come you're taking off in the recovery business so well? How come everybody knows about you? I'm like, I don't know. I don't stop and think about this stuff. I'm out doing it. I didn't plan it. God knows I did not plan it. Being a recovery coach, who would want to be? And now with this show, unless, dealing with people at the worst point of their life. Now, I love it, but most people wouldn't want to do it, and I didn't plan it. And that's the thing with this show. We're starting to get questions now in these major markets, these NHL markets, NFL markets. How come your show's so popular? I don't know. How about you stop asking? Why don't you watch or listen yourself? Maybe the answer will come to you because I don't have it.
Yeah.
Just going to keep doing what I do. Seems to be going okay.
Oh, yeah.
You're pretty much done here, Moose, and I think the Golden Girl's going to be ready. If she's not, I'll get her ready. She was just on a call. Leanne, I'll say this, Leanne, appreciate her chiming in. She says, Chandler Stevenson or Josh Mahura? A Regina Pat is going to win the Stanley Cup.
That's pretty cool.
Well, don't tell me this ain't the great Stanley Cup final. Is there anything you would like me to pass along to Serena?
No, just tell her I miss her and can't wait till I can get back down there again. Although, based on your recommendation, it probably won't be in the middle of summer. So maybe we'll book that for the fall.
Look, this is my second summer. You almost died coming here in early May. So I'm not going to tell you what to do. But I've lived minus 50, and I really didn't like that.
Yeah. So
I'll do this. If I have to choose, which I have to choose, I'll choose this. But when a breeze comes up in the summer here, it's not like a breeze that cools you off.
Yeah.
It's like a dragon breathing on you. It's not refreshing. Anyways, I'm going to do a sports update before we roll. If you wouldn't mind while we do you have your phone handy?
Yes.
Text Serena, please, and tell her we're ready for her.
All right.
And I will do this. The NBA Finals get underway Thursday with the Denver Nuggets hosting the Miami Heat in the series opener. Jimmy Butler scored 28 points, and Caleb Martin had 28 and 10 rebounds to help the 8-seeded Heat dispose of the Boston Celtics 103-84. The Heat avoided become the first team in NBA history to blow a 3-0 series lead. Meanwhile, Philadelphia 76ers have reportedly hired coach Nick Nurse after he was fired by the Raptors. He'll be replacing Doc Rivers, who led the 76ers to their second straight 50-win season, but didn't get to the ship. And the Toronto Blue Jays open a 3-game series with the Milwaukee Brewers at Rogers Center today. The Jays have lost 7 of their last 10 and are in last place in the American League East. Yusei Kikuchi goes to the mound for Toronto. And by the way, the Peterborough Petes are looking for their first win at the Memmer as they face off against the Quebec Rempart tonight in Kamloops. The OHL champs lost their opening 2 games. The Remparts, meanwhile, have already qualified for Sunday's final at 2-0. This sports updates for Landmark Cinemas in theaters June 2nd. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Miles Morales returns for the next chapter of the Oscar-winning Spider-Verse saga. In theaters June 2nd. It's the RP Show. No Game Plus TV today or all this week, but we're managing just fine. Thanks to the Moose. We're on WQEE Radio, podcast, and streaming.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Is it time to take your event online? Bring it to IKS Live. We've got a fully customized virtual event platform with remote guest support for your next fundraiser, talk show, conference, performance, and more. IKS Live offers live streaming to Facebook Live and YouTube and pre-recorded capabilities, both in our studio with green screen available and on location with pre-production and post-production services. Visit us at ikslive.ca.
Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
Does this look familiar? Your fans deserve an incredible arena experience. It's time for an upgrade. Stunning graphics. Revenue opportunities are just the beginning with our in-venue display systems and scoring technology. Let us help you find the best solution for your facility. EDG, always delivering the best fan experience.
And go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It is the RP Show on this Tuesday, episode number 1009. And for those that are tuning in on the streams, you found us because we're not on WQE. Sorry, we're not on Game Plus today, but we are on WQEE Radio in Atlanta, podcast and streaming, obviously. And hey, we've got the Golden Girl here, Serena Kidder. Are you okay with that nickname? I never really asked.
It makes no sense.
It makes a lot of sense. Tomorrow's poll question, and I can't remember who was it that asked, said, has to be, who is the best Golden Girl? What do you think? You want to wait till tomorrow to answer?
Okay. No, we can talk about it now.
I've already gone on record as saying Rose, as has Darren.
No, I like Sophia. Sophia's my favorite.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Moose was with us, and he's flying the ship here. We're on the air. It's great. He says that there will not be as much choppiness here in this segment, and that's cool. The actual poll question today for Key Auto Group is who will win the Stanley Cup final, and I feel like that's as good a place to start with you as any, Serena. For whatever reason, 56% of respondents are saying the Florida Panthers.
Of course they are. Everybody's on the bandwagon.
That's why you say that?
Like we were talking about yesterday, when you get to the Stanley Cup final, that is the difference. Playing in the Stanley Cup final in that series specifically is the difference between running a full marathon and running a half marathon. You start out in the playoffs, the first round is like a 5K. Second round, you're looking at a 10K, twice as hard. Then you have a half marathon, and then you've got a full marathon. Running a full marathon is about 4 times as hard as running a half marathon. That's just the way it's going to be. The Panthers they haven't walked into the Stanley Cup final. They've worked hard, but they haven't steamrolled anybody. So if they think they're going to come in and steamroll a team that has kept Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl at bay, I mean, let's be honest, Dallas was not as strong as Edmonton, not even close. But Vegas learned how to play in that second series against Edmonton. And if they think Tkachuk is going to keep running around and doing what he's doing. He's just not.
Well, fair. And she said to me, was it this morning? You said, what are we going to talk about? And I said, the same thing we talked about in the ocean the other day when we went out. What day was that? Sunday
morning.
And we just sat out there and we talked about the Stanley Cup final. And, well, Dallas and Vegas had neither one had qualified yet at that point. And if you don't mind, I'm going to throw in some comments from the audience. Allie in Texarkana says, hey, Serena.
We love Allie.
This is Jeff Cabillas in Winnipeg says, I'm willing to bet that Serena can bench press 3 of me with no issues. Do you want to tell people what you do on the side when you're not making millions hosting the Rod Pedersen show?
Yeah, I make thousands of dollars more doing what I do than here, which is $0. So that's not hard. $0 for my time here, people. I run my own online fitness and nutrition coaching company. So I have clients here, there, everywhere, literally clients all across North America. So yeah, it's good. Love it.
Look her up on Facebook and Instagram, Coach_Serena, and Eat Fitness on Facebook.
For the record, Rod is not a client.
Body shaming. Cool.
How is that body shaming?
T. Will writes in from Winnipeg, says, Dorothy is my favorite because she was sarcastic and people have told me that I can be a little sarcastic sometimes.
Yeah, Dorothy's good.
So I guess I had talked about getting this in with Darren earlier. I didn't. We've got all week to do it. And from Corey in Tallahassee, Florida says, the hockey club, my favorite guest. Sorry, that's his account, the hockey club, my favorite guest. The layoff.
See, Corey knows what's up.
The layoff. Is it going to hurt the Florida Panthers? And for that matter, the Denver Nuggets. Both have been sitting after sweeps in their conference finals, waiting for their opponent.
Great question. I feel like hockey and basketball, it's the same kind of concept. So is it going to hurt? Absolutely. We had our little ocean talk the other day, and what's happening with the Florida Panthers right now is extremely similar to what happened with the Oilers in 2006. The Oilers had to win a whole bunch of games to get in the playoffs. They got in, they won, they beat Detroit in the first round. They just went. They ended up winning a whole bunch of games in a row in those playoffs. And then they had to wait 9 or 11 days before the Stanley Cup final. It hurt. It's too long it's not gonna make or break who wins the Stanley Cup, but they're gonna feel the effects probably for the first game or two, especially because they're not playing at home.
Well, I've seen Paul Maurice answer this question, the head coach of the Florida Panthers, and it's not surprising. He said this is a challenge. They've been off since Thursday when they swept Carolina. I was reading a story this morning. By the time this series starts, they will only have had 3 days off away from the rink, not on the ice. But what he said was, I'd rather have the rest than not.
I don't disagree. If you have guys going full circle in what I do for a living, your body needs that rest. Your legs, for example, can only take so much. So I don't disagree with him. Your body does need a rest. It's like a marathon runner. They should really take like a week or more off after each event because your legs really need that much time. Like my dad, I always have this conversation with him. He was like, what's wrong with these guys? How come they can't play every night? I don't understand. It's just different. They need the rest, but sometimes it's not about just the rest. It's about the mental aspect of it. Florida got lucky and won the last 4 games in a row, and now they think they're going to walk their way through it. It's different. It's a lot of time off, but it's not like it's not going to be a lot of time for Vegas too. That's a lot of days to be off.
Well, I think that's Paul Maurice just being positive about it. I would agree with it. Take the rest for what it is and be thankful that you have it. I mean, don't overthink it. I don't know if you saw his dressing room speech the other day, however, where he said, we're going into the best time of our lives. I thought that was really awesome. I don't know what he's done here, but it's been amazing.
Here's the thing. Paul Maurice was in that cancer of a Winnipeg Jet locker room, and nobody was listening. And you can see by his predecessor dealing with the same problems. He comes to a team that they're not a cancer in the dressing room. You know, when they traded Huberdeau for Tkachuk, one thing's for certain, Huberdeau is not a dressing room guy and Tkachuk is. And that's a big part of the difference. So when you have a guy like Paul Maurice, I don't think, listen, I'm obviously not a Matthew Tkachuk fan, but I don't think he's disrespectful. And if you can play for Rich Sutter, you can probably respect Paul Maurice. and have it go well. I think playing
Daryl
for
Sutter.
I'm sorry, for playing for Daryl Sutter, I think he learned a lot playing for a guy like Daryl Sutter. Tkachuk is an American. There's a huge difference between American-born and Canadian-born players. They don't play in the same environment. So going up to Calgary was not a healthy environment for him because he got his ass whooped, to be honest. Now he's back in an environment that he's more familiar with. There's no pressure from the fans. Nobody here really knows what's going on. It's the right environment for him. So Paul Maurice is doing great with that.
Actually, I don't mind having this discussion now because these are just she says, what are we going to talk about? It's the same thing we talk about all the time. I mean, what were you watching the other day on television? You just randomly popped up and said, imagine being Mackenzie Weegar.
The World Championships.
That's what you were watching? Yeah.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
Listen, I was a huge Mackenzie Weegar fan when he was here. Other than this year, there's not one person in Canada who could name 5 Florida Panthers. There's not. But I went to a lot of games. There's a lot of guys. Like the first thing I said about that trade was Mackenzie Weegar is going to be a winner for them. And I'm a huge Carter Verhaeghe fan. And I said that right away to Rod. He's like, I don't even really know who that is. I'm like, yeah, just watch him. And look at him now. It's just these guys are good players, but they get lost in the shuffle here. So a guy like Mackenzie Weegar, I mean, if you told Mackenzie Weegar last year he wasn't, that he could potentially have a better chance of being in the Stanley Cup final staying in Florida, no way he would have believed that. No way.
Well, they did win the President's Trophy a year ago.
No, but at the end of the season. But the way Calgary played versus the way with that trade, I don't think anybody would have thought that this is what would be happening right now. And it's funny because we go back like a year and we were talking about, you're like, make your predictions for next year. I'm like, I can't.
You never do.
You cannot predict what's going to happen. If anybody called this final, they need to come over to my house and play the lottery.
Well, I did last year.
Yeah.
That's just how far ahead I am of everybody else.
That's right.
Leanne writes in, she says, the lady hit the nail on the head. She always does. And that's why I say she's not just the best female analyst. She is one of the best, period. Male or female.
Who's homegrown that says I'm annoying?
I don't know. Thanks, homegrown.
Yeah. Don't like it? Click.
That kind of stuff just fuels her.
I don't.
Yeah,
it's like
But here's one. Your favorite topic, if I may. One of them. Swerve in Calgary says empty seats in the regular season. I don't even need to know what he's referencing. He's referencing Florida.
Of course.
They weren't as empty as you think. Years past, yes. They were the joke of the NHL along with Arizona, but they averaged 16,000 a game in the regular season, which was 24th most in the NHL. Now they're selling out at 19.5. They put over 20,000 in the barn for Game 4 of Carolina. However, you have thoughts on Panthers fever sweeping South Florida. So lay them on us.
Well, first and foremost, we know that those attendance numbers are skewed. If you're going to tell me there was an average of 16,000 people in that rink, there's no way. Anytime there's a team from Pittsburgh or Philly or the Rangers or whoever, obviously the Canadian teams, there's thousands of people in the rink from those cities. Those are the ones that are putting bums in the seats. The fans here specifically, they don't fill the rink. They don't. But that doesn't have anything to do with how far they made it in the playoffs or where they got. It's just the way it is. Even the first round against Toronto, even when they banned Leafs fans from buying tickets, there was still thousands of Leafs fans in the building. I mean, Rod, you were at the game. I was watching it on TV, and I said to him, said to you when you got home, like, it sounded really loud in there for Toronto. He was like, it was half Leafs fans. They'll find a way.
They made it. This is Frank Costanza. The weird thing was when the game was over, they sat in their seats and cried. I mean, do you want to talk about, you've said you've gone to a lot of games. The Boston Friends were drunk, loud, starting fights. Bruins fans were a problem. And the security people said to me, are we going to deal with the same thing against Toronto? I said, no, their fans are harmless. They're pussycats, which they were.
Yeah.
They're not, do you know, they're annoying, but they're not dangerous.
I don't really think any of them are, other than probably Bostonians because of where they're from. I don't think it has anything to do with being a Bruins fan or whatever.
Yeah, well, you had a pretty good laugh the other day. I was, whatever game it was here, I ran into Jim McKenzie pro scout for Vegas here in Florida. And we were talking about that, what I just told him, the Boston thing. And he goes, oh, their fans are a bunch of louts. He played for the Hartford Whalers. He said in the 80s, the newspapers in Hartford said the fights in the stands were better than on the ice when the Bruins played the Whalers. Can you imagine those days? Can you imagine being there?
Dude, I miss those days. Can you imagine that actually happening here? There is zero passion in the rink here. I think that's where people compare, like, oh, there's nobody in the seats. What do you expect? It's South Florida, whatever. But there's also no passion. You're gonna get way more passionate fans at a Pats Warriors game than you do in the Stanley Cup final.
From T. Will in Winnipeg says, see, still nobody can believe the Leafs made it out of the first round. Well, they did, and they still fired their general manager. And I don't really understand what's going on there. I don't know that the Leafs will ever get it right. I don't think you're following it that much, are you?
There's always a disconnect there, and I don't understand. And let's be honest, ever since Harold Ballard bought the farm, things have just gone down south. And say what you want about that guy, look what he did for the Leafs for decades. And it's just a coincidence. I'm just trying to be amusing more than anything, but there's definitely been a big difference. It's like when guys like Harold Ballard were running hockey teams, everybody was, oh, I just knocked over the gong. Sorry, Jono. Everybody was accountable. Look at Montreal. That entire city holds every single person accountable. You don't act a fool if you work for the Montreal Canadiens. You just don't. You have a whole city, a fan base that city is ran by that hockey team. And I admire that.
Well,
it should be.
So I'll spend a couple minutes on this, and then I do want to get to the matchup of the Panthers and the Golden Knights and get your prediction, by the way. But we do talk an inordinate amount on the love of hockey in Florida, which incidentally, where did I read it or see it? 4th straight Stanley Cup final with a Florida team. You going to tell me that's just coincidence, or how do you feel about that? That's a big deal.
It's opening a can of worms. That's why I did it. For a lot of reasons. First of all, there's not one Floridian that plays on either team. So let's all calm down about the geographical coincidence here. It's the same people that say a Canadian team hasn't been in the Stanley Cup since blah, blah, blah. Okay. Like, I'm more worried about my own team. You think that the fans or the fan base in Florida is putting players on the ice? No. The guys have money. It's like we were talking about Bill Foley. He's doing the right thing in Vegas. He's only had good head coaches. Tampa Bay has an incredible organization. Right when Steve Yzerman was running that place, there's accountability. There's good players. There's good coaches. There's good staff. Same as here. Oh, it didn't work out with Quenneville. Not their fault. Well, let's get the next best thing and get Paul Maurice. They didn't mess around with head coaches. They got it. It has nothing to do with the geographical location.
Well, that really wasn't what I meant. What I meant was the Panthers' fever sweeping South Florida. I mean, it's got nothing to do with where the players are from. If that was the case, all of Canada would be, or Ontario would have been cheering for the Panthers. There was more Ontario kids on the Panthers than there was the Leafs. People don't care about that.
Well, the Leafs fans do, because that's why they're not winning.
Well, I'm just saying more people in Canada would have cheered for the Panthers because there was more Canadians than the Panthers. It's not about where the players are from. But the fact that they are going nuts down here. They're going to fill FLA Live Arena for the watch parties and all of that. How long will that wave of momentum stay? I guess is my point.
The second the Stanley Cup's over, they'll move on to their lives. It's just, I lived in California for 10 years. I watched the Ducks win the Stanley Cup. And I also watched, as soon as the Ducks and the Kings lose, people don't care. They just carry on with their lives. It's a different environment than in Canada. We live and die by what our team does. Still grieving the fact the Oilers aren't in the playoffs anymore. It's completely different. So when the Panthers lose, there's my prediction. They'll be done. No one's going to shed a tear over it. I can assure you of that. But people like to be part of something. You know, the same thing now the Heat fans are coming out of the woodwork.
Well, even the diehard Panthers fans that I know, of which you know them as well, you introduced me to them, said this was last year, but they said when the Panthers lose, we'll go to Miami Beach and forget about it.
Yeah.
So they don't carry it with them like the Canadians do. But again, that's the way the Dolphins fans are. It's not a hockey state. That's all. You Yes.
Did you say the Dolphins fans?
The Dolphins fans live and die with their team.
Oh, yeah. I misheard that. I was like,
No.
are you sure? Because the Dolphins, like, people live and
No,
die
but
by the
that's
Dolphins.
my point. They sell out every game, win or lose. It's the flip. It's the inverted.
Yeah.
Hockey in Canada, football in America. But here's another one from the game notes that I love so much. What's this? Janet the Four Seasons says, me too, Serena. Me too.
Yeah.
How about the orders being out? That
Yeah.
she's so upset about it. From the game notes, this is the first time that a Stanley Cup final has featured two teams born in the 90s since 07. It was 90s or later, because obviously Vegas is only 6 years old. Panthers came about in 93. Do we care about that? After I read that, I said, who cares that they came about in 93? Why are we still talking about that?
I can't even imagine whose mind goes there.
Not mine.
Oh, you know whose does? Gary Bettman's, because he loves to let everybody know that this is his handiwork. But like, you're right. They've been here for 30 years. Can we like stop with the whole, like I said earlier, if it was like, obviously it wouldn't be Seattle and Vegas in the final, but it's the same. Then you can start talking about, expansion teams. We got to get over this.
Yeah.
Nobody in Ottawa thinks their team is an expansion team.
No.
Like, come on.
I love portions of the game notes, but not all of them. They come up with some really stupid things, but I think you're a baseball person far more than me. There's a lot of stats there that like literally don't mean anything.
Yeah. I love baseball a lot more than Rod does. I love baseball, but I feel like baseball has developed into a statistical game so that the broadcasters have something to talk about in between the pitches. And I'm not even being sarcastic when I say that. Baseball truly is a game of inches, but because it's not a back and forth sport, one team is always in control. That's why there's way more stats. Do they mean anything? No, they don't. But baseball doesn't come up with stupid stats like that.
Leanne, well, they may. I don't follow it enough to say. Leanne says, don't the Knights have the most Canadians? I think there's actually 4 from Manitoba alone. Well, I'd have to add it up, but Zach White, Cloud, Mark Stone. Yeah.
There's a lot.
That's a topic for we could look it up, but I don't feel like going to the big board today. Allie in Toronto said, Allie in Texarkana says, I should have been a Canadian. That's because she loves hockey so much.
I think she's part Canadian. She has to be.
From Safe Moon Dog, he says, what is Serena's background? Leafs should hire her. Would you go work for the Leafs?
Absolutely.
Would you go work for the Flames?
Never.
Well, they asked your background. Tell them your background.
I have a wide variety, I guess, of things that I've done. Worked in radio, fitness. Yeah, I've done a lot of stuff. I've been in fitness, though, for about 11 years now, full time, essentially. But always been a hockey fan, always been obviously extremely opinionated. But yeah, I can't. That's just my background is everything, sports fan.
Yeah, well, she is Canada's first female major junior play-by-play announcer, going back 20-some years, far ahead of her time. Jack in Vulcan, Alberta says, finally, Rod, you've met your match, the Golden Girl. I guess so, but I can handle her just fine. Just fine.
Is this on?
Yeah, you say whatever you want. That's why we're here for. Oh, Jeff says, what if the price was
No,
right?
absolutely not.
You would too.
I would never. No, I couldn't. There's no way. I remember when I first got into broadcasting, this is an interesting subject. I was like, could I do, because I did play-by-play for the Pats, could I do play-by-play for the Moose Jaw Warriors? The answer was always no. I couldn't do it. I don't have the passion. I don't care. If I wanted to work, if I was going to work for a team, I would want to give my heart and soul into that team because that's what I believed was for the betterment of the team. There's not a shred of my being, even my fake fingernails, do not want the Calgary Flames to succeed ever. So I couldn't consciously as a human being work for a team that I don't want them to succeed.
Swerve in Calgary says, a Jill of all trades, not a Jack of all trades. So somebody wrote in here earlier. Now would be a good time to bring it up. since the viewership's going up with you on, which doesn't surprise me. Somebody said, can we bring, actually it was John Ohm. Do you want to give that thing a bang over there?
This?
Yeah.
Oh, and I knocked
There's
it
a
over again.
special way to do it. Hit it right in the center where the end of it. That's a little better, see?
Oh, learning. It's all in the wrist.
John Ohm says, can we get Don Cherry out of retirement for the Stanley Cup final? I think now would be a good time to ask you your thoughts on Don Cherry's dismissal by the network of Sportsnet.
Well, we talked about this.
Did
I
we?
remember specifically at the beach house because you're like, I got to cut a clip and put that on Twitter. If I could probably, growing up, I never missed a hockey night in Canada. I would cry when I had to go to bed. That Islanders game, six overtime game, cried when my mom made me go to bed. Since that travesty of a decision, you could probably count on one hand the amount of times that I've watched Hockey Night in Canada on a Saturday night. I just lost all of my, and a lot of it is just because it was an absolute crime for that to happen. I mean, I could go on for days, but when you look for an excuse to terminate somebody and there's not an actual reason, there was no he didn't cross any legal barriers. He didn't cross any discrimination barriers. They were just looking for an excuse. And how do you cut the main artery of your broadcast?
I know, but they do. And now we're getting some interesting audience participation here. Just to go through it, David in Winnipeg says, would you work for the Winnipeg Jets?
Yeah.
LOL. Terry in Calgary, 5 Manitobans counting Kolazar, Nolan Patrick, White Cloud, Stone, and Howden.
I forgot Kolazar.
Alex Denton says, with the climate today, if you put Don Cherry on TV, you're going to the gulag. What's the gulag? I don't know, but I have a feeling it's probably not good.
Yeah.
If you were running a network right now, would you hire Don Cherry?
Yesterday. Why wouldn't you? The one thing I said about when they got rid of him, I'm like, okay, TSN took the Hockey Night in Canada theme song, which when they didn't want the rights, TSN took it. It wasn't the same. But why wouldn't TSN have hired him? They probably reached out. He probably said no, would be my guess, because why wouldn't you?
Swerve in Calgary says, over a stinking poppy comment.
People are way too soft these days. Way too soft.
Andrew Stout in Montreal, or from Montreal. Would you work for the Habs?
Oh, that would be an absolute honor.
I'm going to save you all a lot of time. She'd work for any team but the Calgary Flames.
Yes, correct.
End of story.
Yes, 100%. Even the teams I hate.
And they're trying to get Don Cherry on the program. Don Cherry has been on the program, which... What an interesting learning lesson that is. He was like my white whale. Now the only guy left that I want is Wayne and The Rock. Wayne Gretzky and The Rock, and I would be ready to retire. But it's like you get Don Cherry and it's, get him again. No, we got him, okay? Go back and watch it if you want. But Cherry, you get to a certain age and you're not there yet. But Cherry is like, I'm done. What is he, like 88? Like I think he realized, Serena, after, and I've read interviews and watched interviews with him where he said once he left Sportsnet, slowed down and kind of stepped outside the hamster wheel, he was like, it ain't bad out here. Why would he step back on the treadmill and be a target for everybody when he can go do a podcast or do the things that he didn't need the money? So I don't think we'll ever see Don Cherry again, and that's his choice and that's his right. Wouldn't you say?
Of course, but I don't think anybody's upset with him. In fact, I don't know one person who's upset with him.
The public?
Yeah, like no one's saying, oh, why didn't he do this? Why didn't he do that? About taking a job again. Nobody's upset. I don't know one person that defended the CBC. Was the CBC at the time, wasn't it? Or Sportsnet? Whoever.
That fired him?
Sportsnet,
yeah,
right.
They're both the same.
Right. Either way. I don't know anybody with a half a brain that defended them. In fact, I was at the gym here, Florida, Boca Raton, Florida. And a guy that used to go to my gym he was a Notre Dame Hound. He's from New Hampshire, but he, went to Wilcox and whatever else. So he was in Saskatchewan, and he came up to me and he said, "You know what my dad said to me?" He goes, "If you piss off a bunch of Canadians, you're the one that's in the wrong, because those are the nicest people on the planet. And if you piss them off, they're not the ones that are wrong."
See, this is why I love the format of this show, because it is supposed to be the view for sports fans, which we can sit here and talk about
trying to push me
the
off.
hair salon the other day with the Boca lady.
It's not what we call them.
Go ahead. I think you can say it.
Can I say it?
Yeah, say it.
We call them Boca bitches around here.
So there was one in the hair salon the other day, and she's like, "What's your show about?" I said, "It's a sports talk show." "Well, what do you talk about?" "Sports." And she goes, "Well, I'm not home during that time during the day." "That's your problem, lady." "Yes, what I do. This is what we do. This is good." From Corey in Tallahassee, the hockey club, says, "Serena worked for God's team? Let's go." God's team being the Regina Pats.
Yeah, of course
Do you
I
want
did.
it? Do you want it in 20 seconds or less? Just encapsulate that story.
Well, I did a whole bunch of work. I did whatever you want to call it, not sideline work, but
level?
intermission. Yeah, intermission stuff. That was before everybody was on the benches and by the side, like the stupid stuff they have now. It was actually like legitimate interviews, not like, "What do you think's happening in this period?" And then I did play-by-play when Rod was doing Rider games and whatever else. Oh, yeah, God's team for sure.
Herb in Melville says, "You guys should approach Don for a segment. He would love your no-nonsense show." I think we have. I don't know. I'm not sure. I worry about this. What?
Don would love us. He would love me.
The guy, somebody wrote in here. Oh, it's Bill in Brantford, Ontario, says, "This is Coach's Corner 2 hours every day." That's what he said. Allie says, "The great one would be amazing to get on here." We will. From Troy in Toronto, "Since Don Cherry got fired, I never watched the intermissions and lost all respect for Ron McLean. He is a turncoat to me. How do you leave your partner out to dry like that?"
Can I chime in on that, please? You guys do not understand what it's like working in broadcasting. You have no idea the backstabbing, the cutthroat, the stuff that goes on. Ron McLean, in my opinion, when was the last time a head coach got fired in the NHL? And you're like, "How come the assistant coaches didn't quit too?" You don't go down with the ship like that. You can't. Ron McLean has a pension to support. He's got a family to support. He's got all those things. Just because they wronged Don Cherry, what's he going to turn around? The best thing, he probably has an advisor that told him, "Keep your mouth shut," because now everybody's ears are raised. Because Grape said something that got him terminated. Everybody was looking for something. What was Ron McLean supposed to do? Stand up and say, "How dare you do that?" live on the air? He'd have been the next one gone. Whether I agree with it or not, I understand. You don't. It's not a live or die with each other. They both had individual jobs. Grapes came on for 8 minutes every Saturday. Ron McLean was on 6 days a week. Dude, there's a huge difference there. That's not a fair statement.
Well, I've said it a million times and nobody listens. Maybe they'll listen to you. Because again, Ron would have been out the door. And what is sad, and I have some experience in this, as you know, what's sad is that friendship, which I think was fantastic, went up in flames. But it's not unlike myself and my color commentator of 18 years. I had nothing to do with Carm Cartieri being fired, yet he didn't agree and others didn't agree.
What, were you supposed to quit when Carm got fired because Carm got done wrong? No, man. You got to focus on numero uno. You're not a hockey team. They were in it separately. It's not, they weren't a team completely.
But again, that's the business, and that's the business that people don't understand about it. And it's frankly why I just want to sit here doing this, and I don't want any part of that. It's brutal. This is better as far as I'm concerned. Randy from Winnipeg says, Rod, Darren, Dawn, and Serena at the beach house for a show. We'd have to tell all the staff at the beach house who he is.
They would have no clue.
Yeah, that's the hard thing to believe. Again, it took me a long time to get my head around it, but I do now. The people that love the Panthers at the games, but they don't think about the Panthers the rest of the year. And they don't know the history of the game. But we love these people. There's nothing wrong with them.
No,
right?
Absolutely not. They're great people.
They treat us great.
Yeah, but they literally, like, if I was to say to somebody here, can you believe what Pietrangelo did to Draisaitl? Not one person would have any idea what I was talking about. Literally no idea. And that's okay. But again, don't try to pretend like you're all of a sudden some big fan now. Like, give me a break.
Yeah. Well, and but the fans I'm thinking of, like those from the Beach House and so forth, they are season ticket holders. They love their team, but it's like I'm not going to watch the Padres and the San Francisco Giants play a game. Like, I'm just not that big of a baseball fan, right?
I would.
Yeah, you would.
Yeah,
but that's why I'm not holding anything against these people. Now, to wind this up, we probably will bring Serena back later in the week if she's amenable. The discussion here from the people. How many said that they haven't watched the intermission since Don Cherry was fired? I mean, I'm kind of a step further. I don't even have the sound up in the games. But again, and you see that, but the intermissions, they aren't the same. And do you think they will ever be the same? Let's just talk about the hockey ones, for instance, right now. And you don't watch a lot because you go to bed early, but PK Subban you've seen on there. Biznasty, obviously Gretzky, Messier, Chelios. Like, I'm seeing what people are putting clips of what Scott Oak said last night. I'm not watching that. I don't get it. We watch the American networks. How do you feel about the intermission panels as they are right now?
For TNT or for
any NHL period, anywhere.
What TNT did was smart. They got Wayne in there. They got the Moose. They got Chelios. They got hockey guys. Then they bring in that donkey Subban. And I don't know what boxes they're trying to check with that. That guy should have been terminated for comments he made. Anybody else would have been. And he's an idiot. And as soon as Bissonnette opens his mouth, mute. I cannot. And it's too bad because I feel like Paul Bissonnette actually really knows the game. What he says is smart, but then he starts saying stupid things. And even Wayne tells him to shut up. Because, I mean, can you imagine being Wayne Gretzky and being put on a panel with those clowns? I don't know how Wayne does it.
The paycheck, perhaps. From WQEE, Ryan O'Radio. Another great RP show. Thank you, Ryan. John Ohm. Can you hit the gong again?
Oh.
There's a special way of doing it. Right in the middle.
Oh, that was a good one. Sick.
She says, I miss Don Cherry, though. Watching a rerun won't cut it, in all honesty. Get him on the show. At least ask. And what's interesting about that is you see that I'm out speaking all over Western Canada, and it's growing. When I bring up that situation, Don Cherry has universal support.
Mm-hmm.
Usually I'll say, you people, and people know exactly what I'm talking about.
And then we ding in the back, which is the greatest part of the show.
Yeah, but I'm saying he's got universal support, but it doesn't matter. Like, there's a deeper story behind this. Cherry's not coming back. The damage has been done. You and I were listening to Cherry's podcast when he said we were driving around Hollywood Hills, if you remember, at the Super Bowl. And he goes, I guess the guy that fired me got fired. What great is that? Like, he's gone. Don's gone. Like the damage has been done. I guess you just got to get over it. I'm not saying it to you. We as a hockey fan base need to get over it.
I don't think we ever will. I think there's certain things that they're pretty hard to get over because you don't understand why they happen. When there's no rhyme or reason for why something happens, there's no closure on it. We're not talking about anything Wayne Gretzky related, by the way, because we have a rule. We don't talk about that with me on the show. But it's
or anywhere.
It's or in the privacy of our home. It's the same thing. You can't make heads or tails of why something happens. And I think I personally don't know if I'll ever get over Grapes.
Ryan in Toronto. Great show today. See you tomorrow, everyone. From Swerve in Calgary, he says Chelly and Mess in $3,000 suits, and then that clown Subban.
Truth.
Speaking as a guy that's been canceled, I don't know what to say about that. Have you been canceled? Not yet. Day ain't over yet.
Yeah, it's 11:59 Mountain Time. Got 1 minute.
I don't know. The one thing about Subban is that okay for me to say I don't agree with how you're dressed. I'm not sure that's even appropriate. but I don't necessarily mind the things that he says. I think his hockey analysis is actually okay.
Well,
I do.
Same as Bissonnette. Like, it's just they're such goofballs. And the ironic thing is, I guarantee his clothes cost way more than those $3,000 suits. That guy ain't playing with his wardrobe. It's goofy looking, but it's
very expensive.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay, thanks for coming on.
My pleasure.
Toodaloo.
Let's go watch some Rock'em Sock'em. That's what we're going to do.
And we'll see you all tomorrow, noon Eastern, right here on the streams and WQEE.